Welcome, everybody. Good evening. All right, that's good. Let's see. All right, it is my great pleasure to welcome everybody again. I'm delighted, and I could not really express the depth of my gratitude to each and every one of you. In particular, those of you from the community, as well as my students, who really are the pride and joy of the work that I do in this great university. So I welcome you again here, and if any of you, if you don't have a copy of the presentation, that's okay. I do have an electronic copy ready to go, so please, before you leave, make sure you leave your email address with whoever is manning that table over there, and I'll gladly send you a PDF copy, which actually is a little bit more comprehensive than the quick handouts that we made and placed over there, all right, for your reference. So here we go. All right, so you see the numbers. I'm going to come down here. You see the numbers up there, and it's a lot of numbers. All right, it's a lot of numbers. A typical financial calculator doesn't have enough space to contain all of those numbers. Yet, those numbers tell the story of America at this moment in time. And so that's what we're about to dissect in all of these forms. All right, so previously, at the inaugural faculty lecture, which the Chancellor mentioned, I discussed the global financial crisis, the causes, consequences, and remedies. This time around, though, we're talking about debt crisis, right? So, in that presentation, I showed this important graph here, which was, in my opinion, very eye-opening because it showed in particular how, in fact, over the years, beginning from after the 9/11 induced recession, how something very dramatic happened in our economy. What is it? Well, if you look at those two lines, you don't really have to be, I'm not an economist actually, I'm a financial educator, teacher, and consultant. But if you look at those numbers, if you look at those pictures, you see that the thick line, which shows you how much we owe, the household sector, how much money we owe, you can see how it outpaced how much money we make. That's a problem. Whenever how much you owe outpaces how much you earn, you got a situation, Houston. And that's what we found out last year. And that was the beginnings of the global financial crisis, because we took out a lot more money than we could service. And as a result, found ourselves in this big ditch today. All right, so in that presentation, I talked about 5 key reasons, 5 contributing factors that cause that. And if you're looking at that screen, keep looking at it. If you're looking at this one, just keep looking at it. You don't really have to follow the pointer. I know it could be a little confusing. So every now and again, I'm going to move from there to here, you know, for equal opportunity. All right, so here's what happened. So I identified 5 key reasons, contributing factors for the global financial crisis. The steep jump in the household debts, which you saw, and it inched up to $14 trillion. I know, what is $14 trillion? If anybody asks you that question, just simply say, it's a lot of money. If somebody asks you, what's $10 million? You would already say it's a lot of money. Yeah, so $14 trillion in debt was a lot of money. And that is the reason, the key reason why we found ourselves in that situation in 2007 when the housing market collapsed. And then we had declining mortgage underwriting standards. Anybody who wanted a loan got one. No due diligence. We had high-risk Wall Street financial derivatives. You may or may not know what that is. I don't. I've been teaching finance for 22 odd years. I don't know what these derivatives were. Today nobody knows them anymore. Nobody trades them anymore because they all fell apart. High credit risk in the debt market. High credit risk means you borrowed, you can't pay it back. That's what happened. So we had all these massive delinquencies. Banks collapsed, and the economy came to a grinding halt. And finally, unsustainable home and stock prices. Home prices went up, they skyrocketed. Did you know that the median price of homes in America until 2007 was $260,000? Right now, it's only about $178,000, by the way. So that's how bad the housing crisis is. And it's not going to recover within the next 10 years. You don't have to be an economist to even know that to be the case. You know, it's not, if you want to make an investment long-term, for 20 years or longer, get into the housing market right now, right? Because it's very cheap. Don't wait until things look pretty and then you go, oh, let's go and buy, right? It doesn't work like that. So those were the things that I identified. And of course, eventually the market plunged by 40% and household wealth tanked by $13 trillion. What's that? It's a lot of money. That's what that was. $13 trillion. That's almost the value of the entire United States stock market. You can buy the entire US stock market with that kind of money. So now, and as the chancellor mentioned, I was invited to different venues overseas to give the presentations. And I've also been quite fortunate over the past couple of years to get to make a scholarly contribution in my field, joined by some of the professors in this university, including Professor Saul Lerner, Shamir Sil, and Paolo Miranda. And so, that is my telltale in my academic, in my scholarly effort in the area of global financial crisis. But this time around, we're talking about the national debt crisis. So first of all, we'll take a look at our national budget. All right, this came to me from about 5 individuals over the past 1 week alone. It's interesting because people said, you're going to give a streetwise, non-technical presentation. I said yes. They said, you want to take a look at this? It's floating on the internet. And I've seen that before, but it actually never occurred to me to incorporate that in this presentation. And I said, sure, why not? So this is my rendering of it with the data up there. All right, so you look at those numbers. Last year, that's our national debt, $14.5 trillion. What's that? It's a lot of money. Then for this year, the projected revenues from government is $2.23 trillion. A lot of money. Projected spending, $3.71 trillion. Deficit, if you take the difference between those two, look at that. What we're getting is less than what we're spending, and that's a deficit. Add that to $14.5 trillion. That's our debt projected for this year. And then, guess what? Congress says, oh, we're going to do something about this debt. We're going to cut our spending. We're going to cut the budget. How much are we going to cut? A whopping $40 billion. Okay, so here's the deal. It says, remove the last 8 zeros and assume this to be a household budget. I like that part. Because with all of these zeros, I'm confused. You cannot, anybody sitting here saying that you can appreciate the value of $14.5 trillion, I think that to be untrue. One of my students in the executive MBA class says $14 trillion is like stacking up dollar bills from Earth to the moon. And I said, I've never been to the moon before. I don't even know how far it is. So if you stack up dollar bills from here to the moon, I would look at it and say, that's a lot of money. That's what that is. So let's make this meaningful. If I told you I'm going to give you 1 million Korean won, you'd probably say, oh yeah, give it to me. But 1 million Korean won is actually $1,000, by the way. All right. So here's what we're going to do. So we map up those 8 zeros right there. All right. You map them up and then what do you have? So if this were your situation, your family situation, that's a good way to appreciate this. Right? This is your situation. This is like saying that your annual family income is $22,280. Which is really projected government revenues, $2.23 trillion, all right? That's a good way. Just knock off all the zeros, so everything is on the same footing, right? So this is saying that you plan to spend $37,000. Well, you got a problem right there. You got a problem to the tune of $14,800 because now you're using your credit card. You probably have a wallet full of it. And showing off to your friends because you got all these credit cards. But check this out. You're in debt to the tune of $14.8 thousand. Well, if you add that to the debt that you already have, that's a total debt of $160,000 and change. And now you were saying, you probably came to me and said, I do financial advising a lot. Matter of fact, tomorrow between 1 and 3, I'm doing a financial planning presentation downstairs. It's to the community, by the way. Whenever you see these things, we can learn together how to manage money, by the way. And one of my key preoccupations right now is a book I'm writing for everybody. It's a book entitled "We Must Change the Way We Live." Because in America, we've screwed things up to the point where we're right now begging money from every time they can hear it. So the book is designed to help people understand what the value of money is and how to use it to the point where you don't need to borrow except to purchase property. All right. So very soon it will come out, and then you pay $5. All right. So and then you put it on your credit card. So well, look at that. So now, you said, okay, I'm going to reduce my spending by 400, but that's 0.2%. That's all Congress is doing. And then when Warren Buffett came out the other day and said, oh, we can save $100 billion, he picked up a little bit of a flack for that. But $100 billion is actually more than twice $40 billion that Congress says they want to save. Put things in perspective, my friend. But consider this. Let's talk about our budget, all right? Which begins every October. Here's the way it works, all right? So for the next year, the president submits a proposal to Congress. So for example, the reason I put this out is so that you know the story, all right? For example, I'm going to go a little closer here, but you don't have to really migrate with me. For example, in 2000, President Clinton submitted budget for the year 2001. Well, look at the top here. In 2008, President Bush submitted budget for the year 2009. But remember, 2009 was actually the year President Obama took office. So that's telling you that the first year in office of the president, the budget that he presides the implementation of is actually submitted by his or her predecessor. That's the way it works. Okay. So now, but this is where the picture gets quite interesting. These are our revenues, how much money we're picking up. So you can see that the taxes we pay Uncle Sam constitute the most amount of dollars that government picks up, 42%. You can also see that Social Security and Social Insurance, those additional lines you see on your paycheck that you don't like because you have a lot of questions about them, that's also a whopping 40%. So between the taxes we pay for Social Security and for income tax, that's about all the money the government really gets, because everything else is simply on the side, such as corporate income tax is only about 9%. That's about how much taxes company pay. All right, and then a few other pennies here and there. So now you know that it is important that we pay our taxes. If we evade taxes, that's a bad thing for America. Now, but where does the money go? Well, look at that picture very well. You may have seen this picture on television every now and again. But put things in perspective. About 60% of the money government spends goes to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and Defense Department. That's it. So the general money that can be applied toward infrastructure, education, pays government salaries, etc., is actually pretty much what you see around here, about 19% of our national budget. This is for fiscal year 2010. So there's not a whole lot of money that can be directed to other means in America, other than what we call here the unfunded mandates. When you hear that term, don't let it be so technical to you. Mandate is something you got to do. Unfunded means you didn't set money aside for it. You tell your grandmother that every month you're going to give her $1,000 to help her live independently. The truth is, you don't really make enough money to give your grandmother. I mean, I know you love your grandmother. I know you'd like to give her $1,000 because that will probably make her live comfortably. But the truth is, you're making $800 every month. So the only way you're able to forge ahead is to take out a loan to make grandmother happy. You're a good child. But the fact is, you cannot afford what you are doing. And that is the reality, part of the reality that I like to present whenever I give presentations. At the end of the day, the value of money is based on what money can afford to buy. If you don't have how much you need to afford what you want, then you really are poor by definition. Unless you want to be realistic and face reality that this story is suggesting that 20% of the total of $3.4 trillion that government spent last year was the only portion that applied to general investments in America. And if you want to cut your budget, that $40 billion is coming up primarily from that portion. And then you see also we're paying a lot of interest on our debts. All right, about 6% of our national budget. We got to pay interest because we have all these debts. You have to pay interest on it. And then there's other mandatory spending. Government has got to pay employees' salaries and wages, maintain all these government institutions around the country. All right, it's mandatory. You've got to pay those. So now, it seems to me, as I'm sure it seems to you, it appears to you, that the only way that you can reduce spending, if you really understand the nature of this pie chart, is defense, which is tough because we have all these installations around the world, and then dip into discretionary spending, the total of which is about 40% of our national budget. That's not really a whole lot of money. So it means we must revisit Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, without which we're not going anywhere. That's the truth of the story.